Investigators in New Mexico are continuing to search for answers after Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy Arakawa were found dead at their home. And emotional. The death of Gene Hackman has attracted so much attention. Almost everyone who knew or worked with him has said something about him, whether about his worth, ethics, ambitions, or controversial death. However, no one expected his homeworker to say something about a man who lived his last years in utter secrecy. Many expected the usual praises of how Hackman transformed Hollywood. Still, her new revelations are the opposite of what we all expected, revealing the side of Hackman that very few knew about. What did she reveal? How will it affect Gene Hackman's image? Let's get to find out. But we have to understand the relationship he had with his staff. Gene Hackman's relationship with his maid. Gene Hackman, the famous actor who starred in movies like The French Connection and Unforgiven, lived a peaceful life in Santa Fe, New Mexico, in a big 12-acre home worth $3.8 million for 17 years. Starting in 2008, he depended on a maid named Maria Delgado to help keep his days going smoothly. Maria, a 52-year-old woman from a town nearby, began working for Gene when he was 78, just 4 years after he stopped acting. In 2004, her work started with simple things: cleaning floors, washing dishes, and straightening up. But over time, it turned into something bigger. A constant presence in the life of a man who had left Hollywood's bright lights behind for a quieter way of living. Maria was brought in through a local agency to help with the large house. Back then, Gene was still up and about, often painting in his study or taking his 3 dogs, Xena Bear and Nikita, for walks around the land. She would spot him in the kitchen with his coffee, wearing a plain shirt and slippers, and he would always say good morning. In a friendly way, Maria later told a Santa Fe newspaper on March 20th, 2025, that he was kind right from the beginning, making her feel at ease in a place that could have seemed big and unwelcoming. That little bit of warmth set the stage for a trust that grew bit by bit, year after year, as she became a regular part of his daily life. As the years passed, Maria's tasks changed to fit what Gene needed by 2015. When he was 85, his memory wasn't as good, and he started relying on her more. She began cooking easy stuff like scrambled eggs or soup for him, since he couldn't manage it alone anymore. She would find him sitting by a window, staring at the mountains, and bringing him a blanket when it got chilly. Some days he would forget my name and call me the nice lady. Maria said, thinking back to how he would still smile at her, she kept the house tidy, though it was never perfect. Dog hair clung to the rugs. Paint tubes were scattered around, and newspapers piled up. Gene didn't care about the mess, and Maria learned to leave it be unless he told her otherwise, honoring how he liked things. The house was large, but not showy, inside matching Gene's simple tastes. Even with his $80 million fortune from acting and wise money, moves by 2020. Maria was working 5 days a week, 8 hours a day, making $40 an hour. She would chat with him about his old films. Even if he didn't always answer, I would tell him he was great in that Superman movie, and he would just nod. She said those small talks seemed to calm him, and she got a knack for knowing when he wanted silence or a friendly word. Gene didn't like a lot of bother. He would brush her off if she fussed too much with cleaning, but he counted on her being there. A steady person in a life that had slowed way down. Despite their close-knit relationships, Maria was still a maid because Gene Hackman married to Betsy Arakawa. Betsy Machiko. Arakawa was born on December 15th, 1959, and grew up in Honolulu. She started playing the piano when she was young at 11 years old. As a sixth grader at Kahala Elementary School, she played in front of thousands of students at the Honolulu International Center Concert Hall. Later, she performed with the Honolulu Symphony Orchestra, which is now known as the Hawaii Symphony Orchestra. She met Hackman in the 1980s while working part-time at a fitness center in Los Angeles and trying to build a career as a classical musician. Hackman had 3 children from an earlier marriage, and in 1991, he and Arakawa got married and made their home in Santa Fe. Her stepchildren are Christopher Elizabeth and Leslie. In 1989, when she was dating Hackman, she gave a concert for people living at a retirement home, used as a German nursing home, in his movie The Package. After they tied the knot, she mostly stopped playing music for the public, even though she was married to a famous actor. Arakawa kept her life out of sight, staying away from interviews and never using social media. She would show up at award shows with Hackman, and was often around on the sets of his films, but she steered clear of attention. She had to do many Hollywood things, but she was very private. Lenehan said, "I think she could keep their life together well," and he liked that. In 2001, Arikawa, who had a knack for interior design, opened Pandora's a store for linens and home furnishings in Santa Fe. With Miss Lenehan, the 2 longtime friends kept the store going until Arakawa passed away. Their controversial death attracted a lot of media attention, raising conspiracies about what could be the cause. Gene Hackman and Betsy controversial deaths. Gene Hackman's death hit Hollywood and the rest of the world like a thunderclap. This shock rippled far and wide when his body was found lifeless beside his wife, Betsy Arakiwa, and their dog in their Santa Fe, New Mexico home on February 26, 2025. When the Santa Fe County Sheriff's Office deputies showed up at the couple's house on Old Sunset Trail in Hyde Park. Around 1:45 in the afternoon, they walked into something confusing and sad all at once. Hackman's body was lying in a mudroom near the kitchen, wearing gray sweatpants, a blue long-sleeve shirt, and brown slippers with a cane, and sunglasses sitting close by. Little things that showed a man getting old, but still holding to his daily ways. Betsy was found in a bathroom stretched out on the floor near a counter where an open prescription bottle sat, pills spilled out around her, like leaves blown off a tree. One of their 3 dogs, first thought to be a German Shepherd, but later known as a Kelpie mix named Xena, was dead in a closet nearby, while 2 other dogs, one inside the house and one outside, were still alive. The quiet of it all, mixed with how the bodies looked, made it clear they would been there a while alone and unseen. Sheriff Adam Mendoza talked to news people on February 27, 2025, and said the deaths were suspicious enough to need a closer look. However, he made sure to say there were no clear signs of anything violent. No gunshot marks, no cut throats, and no smashed windows pointing to someone breaking in. Still, the lack of a fight didn't calm the restless feeling hanging over everything. The bodies were starting to break down, and some even said they were partly mummified, a sign of the dry, high air in Santa Fe, and a hint they had been gone for days, maybe weeks. Hackman's pacemaker, a tiny machine keeping his heart on track, gave a cold hint. It stopped working on February 17th, 9 days before they were found. Mendoza said it was an excellent guess that those 9 days opened a door for all kinds of wonders. When Hackman died, right away, people started guessing, pulled in by how strange it was for 2 people and a dog to die in the same house, for no plain reason, even though some thought. A hidden danger might have slipped through the walls. The sheriff's office knocked out the idea of carbon monoxide poisoning. Early tests on the couple came back clean, and the New Mexico Gas Company brought in to check, the place found just a small leak, nothing big enough to take 3 lives. The fire department found no gas traces, so that thought faded fast. But when one idea fell away, others popped up. Could they have chosen to end it together? A decision made in a dark moment. The pills by Betsy's side made some think that, though no letter turned up moreover, their private ways made it challenging to know what they were feeling, or maybe a sickness hit them both. A twist of fate that got out of hand in their lonely spot. The news grabbed every little bit they could, making it sound like a story from one of Hackman's films on February 28th. 2,025 people on X were all over it. Some crying over losing a great movie actor. Others cooking up wild ideas. One person called it suspicious, flat out saying the mummified bodies and dead dog proved something was wrong. Another brushed off the heavy guesses, saying their age and quiet life. Explained it asking everyone to leave them be. The real story, though, stayed out of reach, and the sheriff's office kept looking, picking up things from the house. 2 cell phones, a thyroid medicine, a blood pressure pill called Diltium and Tylenol, hoping they would light up the dark corners. Hackman's life was full of opposites, a man who owned the screen with rough charm, but picked a quiet life in Santa Fe. After his last movie in 2004, he and Betsy, married since 1991, had made a home away from Hollywood's shine, wrapped in the sharp beauty of the Southern Rockies. Friends said he was slowing down, choosing to stay out of sight, painting and writing books, while Betsy kept their place going. At 95, his body was weak and heart trouble, and a pacemaker were part of him. But he had lived long, outlasting many others from his time. Betsy, 30 years younger, filled their days with piano music, her notes balancing his calm. They were close a team that lasted through the years until it all stopped. The dog's death threw another twist into it. Zena, found locked in the bathroom closet, might have died from no water or food. But why was it shut away? Did it give out after they did? Or was it closed in before everything ended? The 2 dogs are still alive. One near Betsy, and one wandering outside. They didn't say a thing. They were just watching whatever happened. The sheriff waited for a check on Zena's body, hoping it might tie something together. But for now, it was just one more piece that didn't fit by March 1st, 2025. The investigation had rolled into its 5th day, and people's need for answers grew. Some asked if Hackman's Alzheimer's mentioned later on had a hand in it. Could he have gotten lost in his head after Betsy died, not able to call for help problems? The question was he aware, that Miss Hackman had died? And I think that question is difficult to answer. But I can tell you that he was in an advanced state of others, looked at her pills, picturing her taking too many, and leaving him alone until his heart quit. Early autopsies said there were no outside injuries, ruling out a frustrating end. But the suspicious tags stuck, pulling in every idea, from the ordinary to the grim. A worker doing upkeep found them looking through a window after seeing the front door open a bit. That made people curious but didn't lead anywhere. Solid guesses flew around like dust in the desert. Some whispered about a murder-suicide, but no gun or knife showed up to back that up. Others thought of a natural cause, maybe a quick sickness or something in the air. But the tests killed the gas idea, and the house was fine. A few even wondered if Hackman's heart broke. When Betsy passed a sweet thought that he couldn't live without her, his pacemaker stopping on February 17th, and how their bodies looked, made it seem she might have gone first, leaving him in a house that turned into a grave. But without the medical examiner's final say, It was all just thinking, every guess as likely as it was untested, as March went on the case, stayed open a sore spot in people's minds that wouldn't close. Hackman's family daughters Elizabeth and Leslie, from his first wife and granddaughter Annie, expressed their sadness, calling him a man loved and admired by millions. But to them, just Dad and Grandpa Sheriff Mendoza said he would give more news. And on March 7th, 2025, he did Hackman's heart disease, and Alzheimer's, and Betsy's Hunter virus, a rare sickness from rodents, cleared up their deaths. But in those early days before the facts came, the world struggled with a space missing a legend while chasing shadows. The fuss wasn't just about how they died, but what it made people think about fame privacy and how fragile life is. Hackman, once a giant on screen, had picked a hidden life, but dying brought him back into view. His last chapter missing the doubt stirred up by pills. A dead dog and a timeline with holes kept the tale going, showing how even quiet he could still pull a crowd. Most importantly, recent revelations from his maid have prompted people to question the true life of Gene Hackman. Was he law-abiding to the end? What was found in his apartment, and why did it cause such media uproar? Let's spill out the secret, hidden behind Santa Fe's secret room, the secret room. Gene Hackman. Well, new tonight, we're getting a glimpse at the initial investigation into the deaths of actor Gene Hackman and his wife Betsy. After the couple's bodies were found at their home in Santa, a celebrated actor owned a grand mansion in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, set strict rules for their staff among the sprawling hallways. Walls covered with art and beautiful rooms. One door stood out, a door no one was allowed to touch on. It was the inscription, "Don't open." From the very first day, Gene Hackman and Betsy Arakawa told everyone who worked for them, including Maria, that no one could go inside that room without cleaning it or fixing anything. The door stayed closed tight with no key in sight. Everyone in the house followed this rule, but the whispers about it never stopped. People who worked there spoke of odd sounds coming from behind that door at night. When the house was quiet, they heard faint, broken whispers, floating out or soft taps, like someone inside wanted to be noticed. At first, people brushed it off as noise from an old house. It might be wood creaking or wind sneaking through cracks. But sometimes the sounds were so clear they sent shivers down their backs. I heard someone whispering like they were talking to themselves or someone else. Maria said her eyes wide with worry as she thought back to those long nights in the mansion others talked about. Slow, dragging footsteps. But it was always empty when they looked down the hallway. The rumors got bigger over time. Some guessed the room held special treasures from Hackman's days as a big Hollywood star. Others thought it was more than a room, a secret. Gene Hackman never planned to let out of everyone who worked in the mansion. Only one stayed with the Hackman family for over 20 years. Her name was Maria, and she had seen everything, but never said anything about it. Maria was the only one allowed to get close to Gene and Betsy. She made breakfast, cleaned the living room, and sometimes helped Gene sort his mail. But even after over 20 years, she wasn't allowed in that forbidden room. So why, after over 2 decades, did she finally speak up in a quiet interview? Maria shared something she could never forget that stuck with her for years. I never wanted to tell this story, but once I saw that door open, she began not saying exactly when it happened. No one knew what was in that room, but if someone who had worked for Hackman for over 20 years felt uneasy, the secret behind that door had to be something big. Maria also pointed out something a few people had noticed: the door wasn't locked. Usually, I cleaned the hallway nearby once, and when I looked closely, I saw a small mark on the door. A symbol carved so small you'd miss it unless you looked. She said she described it as two circles locked together with a line, cutting through the middle. She didn't know what it meant, but was sure it wasn't there by accident. Another thing that bothered Maria was that Hackman didn't always focus on that room, but he started to over time. He would walk by that hallway, stop at the door, then let out a sigh. I felt he was hiding something, or maybe afraid of what was inside. Maria said she thought that if there was a secret behind that forbidden room, it wasn't one Hackman wanted to keep. It was one he couldn't escape. She also noticed that whenever Hackman came out of there, his face looked tight, his eyes heavy with thoughts like he had seen something too much to handle. This made people wonder if Hackman was hiding something, or if he was the only one who knew the real story. The mystery of the forbidden room in Gene Hackman's mansion stayed unsolved, but Maria's words were just the start of something much bigger. If one door could keep a man like Hackman up at night, what was behind it? And more importantly, would anyone ever dare to open it? The puzzle of that forbidden room in Gene Hackman's mansion still hung, when another rumor popped up, sending a chill through everyone. People started talking about a secret tunnel running under the house. At first, it was just quiet chatter among the maintenance workers and staff. But after something strange happened, the story got too big to ignore. The mansion's maintenance crew had a routine checking the electrical systems, fixing the plumbing, and caring for the huge garden. But one winter morning, a worker named Richard Henry found something unusual. Henry was sent to fix the heating system under the basement floor, which was expected, or so he thought. Using a thermal scanner to check heat patterns, he found a spot that wouldn't appear. He rechecked it, thinking his tools were broken, but no matter what he tried, that area stayed empty, like there was a big hollow space underneath. This wasn't a small problem with over 30 years of experience. Henry knew he had found something, a gap beneath the foundation. He told Hackman's property manager about it, expecting them to look into it more. Instead, he got a short, sharp answer. No need to investigate further. Henry had never seen anyone react like that to a simple work issue. It made him think, did they already know about this space, and why keep it a secret? If they did, rumors had been around for a while, that Hackman's mansion was more than just a home, that it hid something deep. Some said it might connect to an old Civil War tunnel used by rich families to move valuables, or even people in secret. But if that was true, why had Hackman never talked about it? And why was there no sign of such a tunnel in the mansion's building records? No one could say for sure. Then something else happened that pushed the rumor even further. It was a late evening in March, when neighbors near the Hackman estate saw unmarked black cars by the main entrance. The people in them didn't wear police uniforms, but how they moved, organized, watchful, and quick to get inside, looked like federal agents from a movie. Some swore they saw the Federal Bureau of Investigation on a dark jacket. But here's the thing. No official report ever said. The Federal Bureau of Investigation was at Hackman's home that night. Local authorities gave unclear answers when people asked questions, saying no investigation happened there. If nothing happened, who were those people in the cars, and why were they there? Just days later, Hackman reportedly said he didn't want to talk about the house anymore, which only made people more curious, as stories of the tunnel and the Federal Bureau of Investigation visits spread as the mystery of the tunnel under Hackman's mansion hung around. A new rumor took over social media, pulling the story into an even darker place than anyone could imagine. The number 701 started showing up. It began as a single number in random comments on X, Reddit, and TikTok still, like a spark catching wind. 701 became the center of one of the wildest conspiracy theories about the Hackman estate. Word got around that 7:01. Bodies had been found in the secret tunnel. How did this rumor catch fire so fast? And was there any truth to it? On March 16th, an unknown X account posted something that shook people online. Do you believe in buried secrets? Hackman Mansion 7:01. Dig deeper. At first, no one knew what it meant, but within hours, other accounts shared it with mysterious notes. 700. 1. An unbelievable number. If you know, you know. One wrote Hackman, and 7:01 aren't. A coincidence? Said another, the tunnel sealed. But the truth can't stay buried forever. Someone else added to worsen the suspicion. Gene Hackman's family has taken steps to stop the release of his and his wife's autopsy results. Photos and investigation details, a move that people are calling highly unusual. Their deaths set off an investigation that lasted weeks. And just this week, the timeline shifted when a local doctor said Arakawa called his clinic on February 12th, one day, after the police thought she had passed away. Now the people close to Hackman have filed papers to keep the autopsy and death investigation details private. And sources talking to The Sun say this is very atypical. New Mexico doesn't have a rule that keeps autopsy photos private. And usually it's not a worry. But when it's about famous people, lots of people ask for them. So it's common where family members of famous people would use the New Mexico courts to stop the release of photos. Specifically, the source went on, like with the Hackmans. Michael Jackson's family stopped Tito. Jackson's autopsy photos from coming out, and with the Alec Baldwin shooting of Helena Hutchins, her family did the same. But stopping the actual autopsy report again is highly unusual in their request to keep the photographs sealed. The late actor's family explained that he and Arakawa lived an exemplary private life for over 30 years in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and did not show off their lifestyle. They also said that the 14th Amendment gives family members the right to mourn, without showing everyone Hackman's after-death pictures. But besides this tunnel conspiracy, Gene Hackman made a grave mistake before death. What did he do this time? Let's find out the hidden trouble behind Gene Hackman's fortune. She said the first problem is that his will was 20 years old. And now there's the question about whether it reflects his wishes. That's a big deal. An old will might not match what he wanted later in life. And then there is also the issue that he and his wife died around the same time. Who died first? And where will the money go? That has nothing to do with being rich and famous. She added last month, actor Gene Hackman and his wife, Betsy Arakawa, were found dead in their home in Santa Fe, New Mexico. At first, their deaths seemed suspicious, and that sparked a big investigation. But figuring out what happened to them isn't the only tough part. Their estate is shaping up to be a real mess. 2, the investigation has since cleared things up about how they passed Gene Hackman. It turns out was in horrible shape, with many health problems. Heather Gerald, the chief medical examiner of New Mexico, said Hackman died from hypertensive atherosclerosis. Cardiovascular disease and Alzheimer's disease played a big part in it too. Arakawa died so close to Hackman, causing some headaches with his estate and Hackman's will. He named Arakawa the person in charge of everything, and the only one to take over the Gene Hackman Living Trust, with her gone. It's unclear who gets the money. Now Laura Cowan, an award-winning estate planning attorney who started the 2-Hour Lifestyle Lawyer, expressed her opinion. She explained what people usually do when they set up a living trust. They pick a successor trustee to manage and distribute the trust assets when they're gone. Cowan told the Daily Mail, "That's how it's supposed to work. Someone steps in to handle things after you pass." But Hackman made a pretty serious slip-up in that process. Before he died, which could lead to trouble sorting out his estate. As Cowan pointed out, Mr. Hackman did pick successor trustees, but the people he picked all passed away before he did. Cowan said that left a big gap this week. District Judge Maria Sanchez Gainey said yes to a request that put Avalon Trust Limited Liability Company in charge as the temporary successor of the estate. Now Avalon Trust is figuring out how to split Hackman's estate. It's not a small task, and it won't be simple. Cowan said the problems Hackman and his family face now aren't just for famous or rich people. As an estate planning attorney, what we struggle with so often is people think wills are only for the wealthy. Cowan said, and I think what's interesting about Gene Hackman's estate is that his problems have nothing to do with his wealth. Also, it is interesting since they are 30 years apart in age, so they probably didn't think they would die so closely. And now it could cause some legal problems. Cowan said Hackman didn't plan for Arakawa to pass before, or around the same time. Given their age difference, he likely thought she would be around a lot longer. That oversight is now stirring up trouble. The estate is in a tricky spot, with no living successor trustee, named after Arakawa, and she has gone before him. It's a lesson in how even the best laid plans can go sideways when life doesn't follow your expected script. The death of Gene Hackman is very controversial, and the recent revelation from his maid is disturbing. How about the clocking of his wife's autopsy and the fight for his will? This series of events is only adding to the suspicion. Do you think it will affect his Hollywood legacy? Let's hear from you in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next video. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel.